So to implement the migration strategy, the government has identified 8 action items. The first one is to look at temporary work visas in Australia. So there's concerns with the restrictions, especially with a limited set of occupations. One of the problems and constraints we have with the immigration system is that we can only nominate and put people through this program where they fit into defined limited skill sets. For example, if an employer needs a truck driver, that can't be supported by the current system easily. So it's very, very limited and segmented. So they want to make the system more flexible, especially for highly skilled, highly specialized skills. And also to look at removing some of these restrictions we have with the occupation lists. The second action item they've identified is to look at permanent skilled migration. And one of the main things there is to reform the point system. So with permanent skilled migration, general skilled migration, we have a point system that is one of the main ways to identify and categorize people in terms of being eligible, not eligible. And that whole system is going to be reformed and look at what are the favorable factors we want to consider when we assess someone for the suitability for permanent skilled migration to Australia. Also, as part of that, they're looking at reforming and changing the talent and innovation visas. So this will look at new options for investment pathways, as well as highly talented and skilled individuals. Now, that will start with consultations in mid-2024 and will be a work in progress after that. The third area they're looking at are student visas. And there's a lot of concern with student visas. There's been a lot of concerns about exploitation and students using student visas effectively as a way to remain and stay in Australia working when they aren't really genuine students. So they're looking at putting restrictions around this, stopping people doing multiple, essentially low-value courses that really aren't part of their career objectives. And they're just really using this as a way to stay on in Australia. They are also going to lift the English requirements as part of the entry criteria to get student visas for Australia. Now, these changes will happen late 2024. Another focus area is worker exploitation. And this is essentially making sure that workers are not being exploited when going to Australia on temporary work visas. That is expected to be put into place late 2024 as well. The fifth area is on skill planning. And this is planning around skilled migration to Australia, and there will be consultations in this late 2024 as well. The sixth area is looking at regional areas of Australia. Now, this is a focus area. Of course, many people go to the largest cities of Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and so on. But the government really wants to encourage people to go to some of the regional areas of Australia where we are lacking skills. Now, the working holiday visas for Australia, which are available for many countries, for example, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, US, UK, many of these countries are able to get working holiday visas for Australia. The government wants to encourage these people to go to regional areas of Australia as much as possible and give incentives. So if you go to regional areas in Australia, there'll be easier pathways to permanent residency later, and also to have longer stays in Australia. The seventh area, which is quite interesting, is to develop a focus on the Indo-Pacific region. And this is primarily looking at the Pacific nations as well as Southeast Asia. So for the first time, we're really going to have a strong focus and specific focus on pathways for people in Southeast Asia and the Pacific area in terms of having pathways to go to Australia. In particular, they're going to look at business people in Southeast Asia and have some easier pathways for these business people in Southeast Asia to be able to come to Australia and establish themselves in Australia. Now, that's something that's work in progress. We don't have specific dates for that yet, but it is something that's quite exciting, and it's good to see that focus there. The eighth and final objective is to overhaul the whole migration system. And part of that is to simplify the visas, make them easy to understand, and to consolidate and get rid of unnecessary visas. And that's something that will start happening early 2024. Now, in conjunction with these, I also have to mention that the government is going to decrease the migration program. We've seen record high numbers in the post-pandemic period. In fact, in the 2022-23 program year, we are seeing an estimated 510,000 net migrants coming to Australia, which are huge numbers, 500,000 basically. But we're expecting by 2024-2025 program year for this to be roughly halved. So about 250,000 net overseas migration. So in terms of the net numbers migrating to Australia. So a significant decrease. There was that post-pandemic boom because of the lack of skills during the pandemic period, and they were compensating for that. But this is going to taper off, and we will go back to the normal migration numbers that we've seen pre-pandemic.